Welcome to our video on the dark side of dating apps. In today's digital age, where swiping left or right has become a norm, we cannot deny the convenience and excitement that comes with finding love online. However, as much as dating apps can bring people together, they can also attract those with dangerous intentions. The anonymity that comes with online dating apps has paved the way for some of the most horrific and tragic stories in recent times. It's a world where one can find true love or fall prey to a dangerous predator. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into some of the most chilling dating app stories that will make you question whether it's worth taking the risk to find love online. So sit back, grab your popcorn, and get ready to be captivated by the tales of love, heartbreak, and sometimes even murder. Story 1. My best friend and I have been living together in our small apartment in New York City for a few years now. We had met in this city when we were both fresh out of college and looking for new beginnings. I remember the first time we met like it was yesterday. We were both standing in line at a coffee shop, and she noticed my shirt had a reference to our favorite book. We struck up a conversation, and we've been inseparable ever since. One night, we were sitting on the couch, scrolling through dating apps, feeling bored and lonely. We both had busy schedules, and it seemed impossible to find time to meet new people. So we decided to take a chance and try online dating. After a few weeks of swiping, my friend finally met someone who caught her eye. A tall, dark-haired guy with chiseled features and a charming smile. His name was Alex, and she was smitten from the moment they matched. As happy as I was for her, I couldn't help but feel a bit envious. I was still swiping with no luck. But I pushed those thoughts aside and focused on how happy my friend was. She deserved to find someone special. One evening, my friend brought Alex over to our apartment for dinner. As soon as I saw him, I felt a strange sense of familiarity. It wasn't just his good looks. There was something about his dark black eyes and fiery red hair that struck a chord in my memory. I brushed it off as my mind playing tricks on me. But as the night went on, the feeling only grew stronger. After dinner, my friend went to freshen up, leaving me alone with Alex. We made small talk, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I knew him from somewhere. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. This was the guy who killed my little brother. I was only 9 years old when my 5-year-old brother was killed. He and Troy, his best friend, were taking a walk on the train tracks when Troy suddenly hit him with a big stone, then smashed his head in. I had never forgotten that day, the day my life was forever shattered. Troy had been caught, and his confession was enough to put him away for life. But when he turned 18, he was given a new identity and allowed to live freely in the world again. I was stuck. I couldn't breathe. The man who had caused me so much pain and suffering was sitting right in front of me, and my friend had no idea. I tried to keep my composure, tried to talk to him about our childhoods, but he was reluctant to share anything. He did mention that something tragic had happened in his own childhood, but he didn't go into detail. I tried to keep the conversation going, hoping to get some answers, but he seemed more and more uncomfortable. And then, out of nowhere, I blurted out his old name, Troy. The room went silent, and we both stared at each other with a mixture of shock and horror. He quickly got up to leave, and my friend came back into the room, confused as to what was happening. I tried to explain, but I couldn't find the words. All I could do was sit there, feeling like my entire world had just crumbled. I told my friend everything once Troy had left. She was shocked and horrified, but she didn't know what to do. We both felt helpless. like we had just stumbled into something we weren't prepared for. Story 2. I couldn't believe what had just happened to me. It was like something out of a horror movie. I had met this guy named Jake on Bumble, and after talking for a couple of weeks, we decided to meet up in person. He suggested that I come to his house, and then he would drive us to the restaurant. I know, it was a stupid idea, but I was naive and thought that I could trust him. As we were driving, I started to notice that Jake was being very creepy. He was driving on dark roads and not adding any location to his GPS. Red flags were going off in my head, but I tried to ignore them and be optimistic. But then, he parked the car in the middle of a dark, black woods and asked me if we could watch the stars in the sky. At first, I thought it was a sweet gesture. But then he asked me to come to the back of the car with him. It was there that he started acting very strange and began being sexual with me. It was terrifying. I tried to fight him off, but he was much stronger than me. I was scared, alone and in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know what to do. But then, I remembered something my self-defense instructor had taught me. I kicked him in his private parts with all the force I could muster, and he stumbled back. That was my chance to escape. I ran out of the car and into the woods, not looking back. I could hear him yelling behind me, but I didn't stop. I ran until I couldn't run anymore, and then I collapsed on the ground, sobbing. I didn't know what to do next. I was in the middle of nowhere, and it was dark outside. I was scared that he would come after me, so I decided to keep moving. I walked for what felt like hours until I finally found a road. I was lucky enough to flag down a passing car and ask for help. The driver took me to the nearest police station, and I reported everything that had happened. The police were able to track Jake down and arrest him for attempted rape. It turned out that he had a long history of similar offenses, and I was lucky to have gotten away. It took me a long time to recover from that experience. I was scared to be alone, scared to trust anyone, and scared to even think about dating again. But with time and therapy, I was able to heal and move on. Now, looking back on that night, I realize how lucky I was to have gotten away. It could have ended much worse. And I want to share my story as a cautionary tale to anyone out there who is thinking about meeting someone online. Always be careful. Always be aware. And always trust your instincts. Story 3. I never thought that online dating could turn into a nightmare until after I met him. It was my first time using a dating app, and I was excited to find someone who shared my interests. His profile picture showed a charming guy with a perfect smile and warm eyes. We started talking, and he seemed like the perfect guy. He was kind, smart, and shared my love for hiking. We exchanged phone numbers and started talking on the phone. Our conversations would go on for hours, and I felt like I'd found someone special. He would send me pictures of his hikes and even some of his paintings. He was an artist, and I was fascinated by his work. After a month of talking, we decided to meet in person. He suggested a picnic in the park, and I thought it was a great idea. We set a date, and I couldn't wait to finally meet him. I spent hours getting ready, and I was nervous and excited at the same time. When I arrived at the park, I saw him waiting for me. He looked just like his pictures, and I felt relieved. We started walking towards a secluded area in the park where he had set up a picnic blanket and some food. Everything seemed perfect, and I enjoyed his company. After a while, I started feeling dizzy and disoriented. I couldn't figure out what was happening to me. The last thing I remembered was him handing me a glass of wine Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair in a dark room. I tried to scream, but my mouth was gagged. I was terrified and didn't know what was going to happen to me. Then he walked in, and I saw the look in his eyes. It was a look of pure evil. He started telling me about his obsession with me, how he had been stalking me for weeks, watching my every move. He told me how he had planned everything, how he had drugged me, and how he was going to keep me as his captive forever. I was horrified and felt sick to my stomach. I begged him to let me go, but he just laughed. I knew that I had to escape. He left the room for a few moments when I managed to free myself from the ropes, and I ran towards the door. He chased after me, but I was faster. I ran as fast as I could until I reached the park's entrance. I could hear him screaming my name, and I knew that he was coming after me. I jumped into a taxi and told the driver to take me to my house. It was the most terrifying experience of my life, but I learned a valuable lesson. I learned that not everyone online is who they seem to be. I learned that we need to be careful and protect ourselves from those who seek to do us harm. Always be cautious when using dating apps and meeting strangers. It's important to prioritize your safety and trust your gut instincts. Don't be afraid to cancel a date or leave a situation that makes you feel uncomfortable. Remember, your safety is always the most important thing. Stay alert and be mindful of the people you meet online.